the website. So that's a case of a cyber vandalism, which then had real-world effects. Other ones are things like DDoS attacks, where literally all you're trying to, what is a DDoS attack? Yeah, distributed denial of service attack. And how does it work? DDoS, DDoS, anyone know how they work? All right, so here's the basic idea. Here's a road. The road has 2 lanes. What happens around rush hour every time you're on the road?
You get stuck.
Yeah, you get stuck and traffic slows down. Why?
Because you can't move.
Why can't you move? Too many cars for the amount of space. Same thing with networks. At the end of the day, the internet is a bunch of wires connected. Every website is designed for a certain number of people to try to access it at once. What happens if you send way more people than the website was designed to have try to access it? Yeah, it crashes. The same idea as a traffic jam. So a directed denial of service is you get a large number of computers. Either you get a lot of people to work with you, or you just get a botnet which controls a whole lot of other computers and have them all attempt to log into the website at the same time, and it shuts it down and prevents it from working for a few hours. So that's another type of cyber vandalism. So what you can see then is that all of these, so these are all crimes. Some of them have to involve computers. Some of them don't necessarily have to, but can be made worse with computers. So that's what we're talking about with this. So if we go back over, everyone on board with what the crimes are? It's, boring philosophy, let's carve it up. Now though, let's go back to hacking. How does hacking fit in here? Why is it the case that sometimes hacking's illegal, other times hacking's not illegal? No.
Because sometimes you may have to hack a system in order to improve it or...
Yeah, so one thing is hacking's just entering a part of a system where you weren't given official permission or credentials to hack. So not every time that happens is it going to be the case that you're trespassing, performing piracy, vandalizing, or committing some other sort of crime. So what's a case in which you're hacking, by definition, but you're not committing a crime?
Like maybe you were trying to stop a bomb.
Yeah, so here's one thing, is that one sort of case you can think of is in which you are trying to get into a computer system for a bigger purpose designed to help out something. So, for instance, if, say, there's a computer system of a company that some sort of bomb has been planted in, or going back into the thing from the beginning of the class, if that power station was shutting down and somebody else were to then hack into it to try to shut down that malware from shutting down the system, then you'd have a case in which it's not illegal. What's the most common type of not illegal hacking? Change of topic there.
If FBI hacks something for the criminal.
So yeah, so here's another type of case, is who spends a lot of time hacking? Governments trying to hack criminals. So here's another case where if you have a warrant or anything like that, hacking into a system is not illegal. So law enforcement hacking. So any sort of law enforcement hacking, so we can imagine that first case, like defusing a bomb, would be that sort of law enforcement hacking.
Are like bugs fixes?
Yeah, so here's another way. If you have a computer system, it has bugs in it. So if you're a big company, your firewall very well has issues with it. What's the best way to find those issues and fix them?
Hacking.
You hire a hacker to try to break in. You tell someone, hey, we give you permission to try to break into our system. If you find it, we'll pay you for every bug you find so we can then fix it. Anyone know what I'm about to draw here? Let's see. That is the worst one of these ever, so let's try again. These are the worst drawn versions of this ever. I'll give you all a clue in a second.
White hatting.
Yeah.
White.
White, gray, black hatting. So, what is white hat hacking? It's this. It's hacking for a company who explicitly asked you to help with bug fixes and finding security flaws. So another type of hacking that's perfectly legal is white hat hacking. Any sort of, and this is probably the most common type of hacking you find, and companies pay hackers huge amounts of money to do this. If you have the skills to hack and you want to make a living doing it, and you don't want to do anything illegal, you can make a pretty damn good living being a white hat hacker. You just work very often freelance, or sometimes big companies will have in-house hackers whose job it is literally to test the systems at all times, because as any of you who code know, you're going to make mistakes and there's going to be holes in the system, and the only way you're going to be able to make sure that there's no big long-term problems is you find them before someone else does. So that's the idea behind white hat hacking. And what you can see is in both of these cases, with law enforcement or white hat hacking, it's not illegal. In this case, because you literally have legal permission to do it, and in this case, even though in some sense you're not in a part of a system that you were allowed to be in or supposed to be in, you're doing it with the permission of the company or the organization to find those gaps. And this is why hacking is not clearly not the same thing as crime. There are these sorts of cases. Now, what then is black hat hacking?
It's the opposite.
Yep. Black hat hacking is when you hack explicitly for personal gain and you're doing illegal things. So examples of this include breaking into a computer system and taking money, stealing financial secrets or business secrets, any sort of, so if white hat is cases in which there are nothing illegal, black hat is cases in which it's explicitly illegal and done for personal gain. Hence the black hat. There's no gray area. White, good, black, bad is the way it's designed to be. Why would one become a black hat hacker? Money. Money is the main reason one becomes a black hat hacker. You can make a ton of money by hacking into computer systems. Granted, you're also breaking the law and very often doing things that are highly immoral. Things like, hacking into some poor family's bank account and emptying it out. Or hacking into the target systems, installing malware that reads credit card numbers, collecting those credit card numbers and then selling them online. Or using those credit card numbers to buy lots of things. These are classic black hat hacking cases. Then what's gray hat hacking?
It's just like both, kind of.
Yeah, it's in the middle.
Hybrid.
So it's the one that's probably the most morally interesting. And this goes back to our one from before. So remember, we said hacking, legal versus illegal depends, but then also moral versus immoral depends. So think of a white hat case. Is it morally acceptable to be a white hat hacker? Yes, it seems very clearly morally acceptable. Black hat hacking. Black hat. It's harder to say than you'd expect. Black hat hacking. Morally acceptable, morally wrong. Wrong. It seems almost always that black hat hacking is wrong. Gray is the middle one, hence why it's morally gray. So what are some examples of gray hat hacking? Where are cases in which hacking, and very often, to be clear, with gray hat hacking, it's very often illegal, but it's not necessarily obviously immoral. No.
Perhaps your children's privacy.
Yeah, so here's one. If you're worried about the well-being of your own child and you hack into their system, you're technically, like if you go onto their Facebook page, I'm not sure, but my guess is if they're over 18, it's certainly against the Facebook terms of service. You are technically breaking Facebook's rules and they could kick you off because you're pretending to be somebody you're not, who's legally an adult. But if you're worried about their well-being, you might say, oh, in this case, that against the terms of service and possibly illegal action is not morally wrong because you're doing it for a good purpose. What are some other cases?
If you hack a company to expose corruption.
Yeah, this is another very clear, nice, gray case. Is cases in which you are hacking into a system where you are clearly damaging the reputation or the quality of the company, but you're doing it for the greater good or to expose that they're doing something wrong. So, for instance, any type of whistleblowing case. So Snowden is a clear case of a gray hat hacking. He literally bought a little device which would scan the NSA systems, collected all the data, and then gave it to a reporter. That is, strictly speaking, hacking. He was somewhere where he wasn't supposed to be. And he did something he wasn't supposed to, collect the data. But, depending on your perspective, you might say that he's done something which is morally acceptable. What are some other cases? If somebody's hacking into your computer, what's the most effective way of stopping them? Antivirus? Say they're past the antivirus, they're inside.
Changing the password?
They've got administrative access, it doesn't matter.
Just burn down the computer.
Turn off the computer.
Turn off your computer.
They can turn it on back.
Yeah, but they've got administrative access, they say they can turn it back on.
Delete everything.
Protect. The best way is, you know,
Destroy
if
the
they're in your
computer.
system, how do you get back at them? You get into theirs. Hacking back is one of the most common things you can try to do.
Defense.
But hacking back, so if somebody's trying to hack into you, you hack into them back and try to just like get inside and stop them from doing what you're doing, or make it clear to them that you have as much control over them as they have over you, and it's the most effective way of, you know, it's just like a classic, all right, you want to screw with my stuff, I'll mess your stuff up just as much, is this really worth it to you? What's the issue about hacking back?
Could like harm the other people who
Yeah,
are not.
It's
in the
illegal to
network.
hack back. Like, just straight up, it is not allowed. If you are a cybersecurity company who's working for a large, say, Fortune 500 company, and hackers are attacking you, even if you know and have access to their systems and could shut them down to stop them from getting inside your system, legally you are not allowed to. If you do that, it is against the law. But you might think that maybe you should have the right, or it would be okay to hack back in that sort of case. So hacking back is another gray hat area, and it really comes down to you know, what your views are. And we'll talk in a minute about why why hacking back can be more of a problem than you think. Because very often it's like, well, if you're breaking into my system, you've lost all rights to your protection, so I should be allowed to break back into yours, but it's still technically illegal. Let's go. Boop, boop, ba-doop, ba-doop, boo. So what we have here with hacking is sometimes it's a crime. There are clear cases in which it's a crime, especially cases in which you've got piracy, trespassing, vandalism, or times in which you commit another bigger crime using a computer, using hacking. Other times it's very clearly not illegal. Other times it's illegal but not really immoral. And so when you're asking yourself with hacking, like there's a big picture question of like, is this right, is it wrong? And there's not going to be a blanket statement. If you find out someone's a hacker, you don't know whether they're a good person, a bad person, a criminal, a perfectly acceptable citizen who's trying to make the world a better place. You don't know these answers. So, why do people hack? What are the reasons for hacking? And there's a lot of them.
Money?
Yeah, so money's one. So personal gain is one good one.
Hobby, kind of like some people like it, enjoy.
Yeah, here's something. How many people like to know how things work? How many of you? We all know people, like older people who loved building and fixing cars. You can't really do it anymore because cars are so complicated. But we all know those people who just want to take things apart just to know how they work. That's the same idea with hacking. Is because of the terms of service of a lot of things like operating systems, you're technically not allowed to go into an operating system, look at the code, and understand how things work. But if you're at all curious about computers, which based on the fact that a lot of you are in computer science, you probably have at least some curiosity, like that's something which you just are going to find interesting and you want to do. So that's the case in which hacking is not just for personal gain, it's not just to make money. Sometimes it might be for that sort of thing, but also it might just be that you're curious and interested in how things work. And that is probably the main reason why people first get into hacking, is they just find it very interesting. What are some other reasons or some benefits?
Act of heroism?
Say that again?
Act of heroism?
Yeah, acts of heroism. So another thing about hacking is who knows the most about how the inside of a particular piece of software works, or any sort of code or operating system. Who knows it the best?
Developer, I don't know.
Okay, I got 3 answers. Let's shout them out loudly, and then maybe I'll be able to pick out one of them. Who knows it the best?
Developer? Who made the software?
Yeah, who made the software? Whoever made the software. Therefore, if corners were cut in designing the software, if cybersecurity was not taken into account, if a system is not safe, who's going to know best that it's not safe? The creator. So let's go with a case. Say your bank decides to cut corners on their cybersecurity division, and they decide the best way to save money, or one very effective way, is to have a much smaller IT department than would be needed to keep it safe. Who knows this? The bank does. Does the bank have any reason to tell its customers this is happening? No, they have active reason not to. Because you know what sort of bank no one wants to keep their money with? The sort of bank that can't keep your money safe. So you've got a bank who knows their security system's not good enough, but is never going to tell anyone. Who might be able to look out for the customers and make sure that they're safe? Who might be able to get that information if the bank's not going to tell you? The IT department. Specifically, an IT person who, what might this IT person do?
Maybe they secure bank alarms and.
Yeah, so they might personally take it upon themselves to keep the system safe, but that's going to be a lot of work. More likely what they might do is hack into the system and take things they don't have permission and release it to the press. Or maybe it's somebody who's just really good at hacking, keeps their money there, and just wants to make sure that their money's safe. So what do? They try to hack in, and they find out, oh crap, this company's cutting corners. So here's another reason that people might want hackers around, is even though there's a sense in which somebody doing this is trespassing or committing a crime, there's a lot of ways in which the companies themselves are not going to look out for their customers' data in every single case. And there's a sense in which the only way to prevent people from exploiting you is to make sure that you can respond to it in some way. So there's a sort of libertarian element, or a sort of self-reliance element of, if the other people have all the power and all the money, and you want to make sure you're not being screwed, knowing how to hack into their systems, or at least there being people out there who are willing to hack into those systems and then publish that information, is useful sort of stuff. It's a sort of external checks and balances on a system. So that's another reason you might want hacking around, is it serves a societal good in certain ways. Now you might say that it would be better if a company just, took care of their own cybersecurity and kept it safe, but you can't always trust big companies to do that, or big organizations, or things like that. It's helpful when you have people whose job it is, or whose hobby it is, to make sure that things are safe. No.
Yeah, I was going to disagree, because you would need. I just think in general it's good to have experts in every field, even if it's a negative field, like hacking, or bomb building, or whatever, because if you have an expert, they can always tell you what's going on.
Yeah, and that's exactly the thing, is if the only experts have a financial reason not to tell you when there are problems, then it's helpful to have other experts outside. It's the same thing of going back to whatever class, the professional ethics, I guess that was the 3rd class we had. We're talking about, you need an external review board doesn't have an interest in making sure that money is made. So you don't ask the person's boss whether they're doing a good job if that boss has a reason to say, yes, they're doing a good job, even if they aren't. So in this case, you can treat hackers. Remember, we said that one of the issues with computer science is there is no external review board. There's nothing like the Doctors Association that takes people's licenses away. Well, one group of external board, instead of that, you have individuals who are hacking who can do at least part of that job. And going back to the white hat, is there's always going to be people who are using computers for their own personal gain. And if you don't have people with the same skills who can work and help companies keep things safe, or can help governments keep things safe, it's not going to end up staying safe. Everyone understand all of this? So when you find out somebody's a hacker, there is not a clear answer of what sort of person they are. Also, what sorts of, and this one kind of was touched on, and this is we're going to take our break a little earlier today for a few different reasons. mostly so I can take a snack, and also because the way it divides, it just makes more sense. So we'll probably take our break in about 5 minutes. But who are the biggest employers of hackers worldwide? Governments. World governments are the largest employers of hackers, or like associated government divisions. And why do they have hackers? Why would a government need a team of hackers?
Safety or like understanding foreign attacks.
Yeah, so here's one thing, is what better way to get information? Remember what we talked about with privacy and security? Well, if you're a nation, you also have reason to want to get information about other people in the world. Specifically who? If you're the United States, who do you want information on?
China.
China. North Korea. Who does North Korea want information on? Us. Russia. China. If you're a nation, one of the major ways in which you keep yourself safe is you learn what other nations are doing. And nowadays, when so much is digital, that's the best people to have on board. Also, law enforcement agencies are going to want to hire people who know how to hack. Because if there's semi-encrypted messages going back and forth between, say, ISIS terrorist suspects, and they're talking to each other, you want somebody who's going to know how to get into that phone and get that information. If you're trying to mine data on Facebook about which individuals might become dangerous to your nation, you need experts who know how to do computers and do that sort of stuff. So what we're going to talk about, so that's the basic idea with hacking. Hacking is a really useful way of just talking about what's crimes, what are cyber crimes, what are cyber-related crimes, and show that hacking is not clearly black and white. But what we're going to talk about now is how the existence of hacking and this cyber technology has also really changed things like foreign relations and what it is for a nation to be safe and what it takes to secure a nation and what international relations are like. And a lot of this is going to be a lot of things that we're going to be talking, like, are going on in the news right now. So we'll have some current event stuff too. So take your break now. We can come back and say, let's go 20 minutes today. Let's take an extra long break. Everyone can get a snack. So come back at, what is that, 12:05. So I guess like 18 minutes. Go? Yeah. All right. Just give me 1 sec to shut these off, and then